Hey, I'm Matt at MrMaple.
And I'm Tim at MrMaple.
And welcome to the MrMaple Show. Thanks for clicking on this video. Today we have a very fun one for you. It's part 2 to Japanese maples with amazing variegation.
We greatly appreciate you taking time to watch this video. Please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and sign up for our weekly emails on MrMaple.com. We have over 1,000 varieties of Japanese maples at MrMaple, and every week we add 10 new exciting trees at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so that's definitely an email you'll want to check out. These are Japanese maples with amazing variegation, part 2.
Yeah, part 1 was really well received. We've been doing a few of these series where we talk about some different plants and kind of compare them a little bit. It's a fun way to talk to you about Japanese maples even out of leaf. Obviously we're a little colder right now. Now we're shooting this video in January of 2022, so any of the cultivars we talk about, these will be exemplary of the sizes during that time frame. A year later they may be larger or smaller, but this is kind of indicative of what we have right now. We've actually picked out another assortment of interesting variegated Japanese maples that we want to talk to you about today, each with their own unique qualities and characteristics.
From a dwarf reticulated variegation, splash pink and white, red on red variegation, to even a variegated full moon type almost. These are going to be plants you're going to really love. I really hope you enjoy this video. So our first maple today is Acer SIEBOLDIANUM Kumoi Nishiki. This is a variegated full moon maple type. Many often consider the SIEBOLDIANUMs full moon-like because they have that rounded leaf like an Acer shirasawanum or an Acer japonicum. Kumoi Nishiki is that rounded leaf, but with lots of great variegation to it.
Yeah, it's a very unique style variegation. Kumoi Nishiki has a swirling, and I mean a dense swirling of white through all that creamy green. It makes it a really unique color pattern. It's one that's almost, I mean, tiger stripe to the eye. I don't even know a good way to describe it the best, but it's like a lot of intense swirling in a different format than you think of with your like a Ridano Nishiki style variegation.
And so you get that big green leaf, but with that white swirl all across the leaf. It really is almost like a milky kind of swirling variegation to it that gives it something very unique and something very different, especially when this tree goes to yellows and oranges in the fall.
Yeah, you'll still have that lighter color contrasting with the darker colors. The greener part of the leaf is going to get to more of a reddish orange, so it's just exquisite on that fall color as well. You know what you think of for SIEBOLDIANUMs with fall color, this is going to have that. Acer SIEBOLDIANUM Kumoi Nishiki goes through some great color changes. You know, you're going to keep that variegated part being the lighter colors with those darker colors on the greener part of the leaf. It is an exquisite tree. I mean, SIEBOLDIANUMs are often highly sought after just for their form and texture. Add on top of that, this one's a variegated selection. It makes it a plant you're going to want to have in your collection. We were growing this tree for quite a while. We were actually in Japan and got to go to Kobayashi Momiji Inn, and they were like, hey, check out one of our coolest new things. And we were excited to see it, but realized pretty quickly, hey, we've already got this. This is a cool plant. Being the maple geeks we are, we have to check out everything new everywhere. And yeah, it was Acer SIEBOLDIANUM Kumoi Nishiki there at their nursery as well. So it was just fun to see that connection to that being something they were excited about at their nursery as well. That was new and interesting.
And it was kind of crazy because it was introduced in Japan, yet someone had found its way to make it to the United States, and we'd already got one before we went to Japan. And when we went there, they were bragging about it, and we're like, yeah, we already have that. So it was kind of shocking that we could get something that quick, or something new and exciting that's really is special, because there's not another variegated full moon maple like it.
Yeah, the SIEBOLDIANUMs are very cold tolerant, very durable. This is a unique one that you're going to like in your garden. If you like those larger, rounder leaves, it's a must-have. There's not many variegated plants in that category of maple with the larger leaves, the shirasawanums, the japonicums, and the SIEBOLDIANUMs and the pseudo-SIEBOLDIANUMs. This is one that's extremely stable. I think it's a very strong style variegation, and so it gives it a very unique quality. I think it's just one you're really going to enjoy in your garden for sure.
I also like the fact that it leaves out later, which helps for later early frost in the early spring. Whenever you have something that leaves out a week or two later than the rest, that's that much more time you don't have to worry about that fresh tender growth getting hit by frost.
So next up we have a very exciting variegated plant. It's I would say it's probably one of the most popular releases every time we put it back on the 10 at 10. It's one that tends to just make a big splash. Acer PALMATUM Noel. Now this is essentially a variegated Shindeshojo. So it's going to have everything you love about Shindeshojo with some variegated like cyclical swirling in it. So it gives it that that unique variegated form of bright pink over top of that like bright spring color of Shindeshojo. So you're gonna get that like bright, intense red with pink and white hints on top of that.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more showy plants because you get that such intense color of that red, but then you get pink in that. And when you do that, that contrast really just gives something extra. It really makes it really almost shocking to see that whenever you see that colors.
Yeah, this was found as a sport on a Shindeshojo by our friend John O'Brien in Danby, Connecticut at O'Brien Nursery. Shout out to John, he's a good friend of ours. And just a great selection. I could be wrong, but I believe the name was given to it because of one of John's dogs that was named after. I know one of the first times I ever saw this plant was at Dennis Dodge's place. We were visiting the late great Dennis Dodge, and Dennis rarely left his house, but he could show you anything on the internet. Like you could go in his basement and the guy could show you like this one guy has the coolest Skydopotis in Turkey that does this, and like so he knew his way around the internet.
He was showing us photos of trees from our special releases that I don't know who I've shared that with.
I don't know if I even put the picture online yet. I was a little like, wow, how'd you do that? So he was a little reluctant to tell me the source at the time. He kind of made it, he played loose with the idea that it might have come from overseas. But really good friend of ours, Dennis Dodge, what a fun treasure to go see for plant collecting. But I reminisce on going and seeing this the first time with him when I saw it for the very first time.
And this one is a really special plant. That red on pink variegation really gives it something extra that I think.
Yeah, being a Christmas name too with Noel, it's kind of perfectly colored. I mean, it's bright red with that pink on top of it, which fades almost like a creamy color midsummer. And it gives a hint of that Christmas flair to the tree, especially in leaf. It's an amazing color pattern. I think you're going to love this one in your garden. It's certainly a special plant. It's going to stand out pretty much against anything you put it up against as far as color pattern wise. Pair this with a lime green or a yellow, and the colors are going to be out of this world.
Matt was trying to get me to put this tree on a 10 at 10 around Christmas, but I already had the 10 at 10s planned. And so I was like, well, maybe a few weeks later. So this one's coming to you very soon. If you're watching this video, if it's not already on a 10 at 10. And I think it's one that you're going to really enjoy.
I told him he missed the marking. We got Irish Bell, and we had Irish Lace on St. Patrick's Day. We dropped Cupid on Valentine's Day. I'm like, come on, you got to get Noel. And like Christmas cheer, there's a whole Christmas carol. We could have a whole little themed Christmas party there, but didn't work out this time because it was already done. But we wanted to get this one out there. It's a hint, if you're seeing this, it's either on the 10 at 10 already or coming to one very soon. So.
Next, we have a tree that has some amazing variegation. It is Acer palmatum kotobuki. This is a tree that has pink and white swirls all across it. This one is particularly selected because it has more pink to the variegation than white. And so you'll see a lot of pink on those new growth flushes. One thing we've learned about this style of variegation is to give it, to cut it back during late February or early spring to let those new growth flushes really flush out with even more variegation.
Yeah, right before that leaf's out, it's the ideal time for that. Slightly pruning this, I believe Core calls it the versicolor group, that swirling style to it. Will really intensify the variegation even stronger that upcoming season. So that's a little nurseryman trick to get even better colors on these. Now the new growth is going to be spectacular on this. In fact, the old growth on this one's even very strongly variegated. It's a plant I haven't seen revert before either. Really strong style variegation overall. What this one brings is that intense pink. You're going to get some white and some green in there as well, but the pinks are just superb on this. They're very, very bold, and it's going to be an eye catcher for that reason for sure.
Yeah, kotobuki is one of the newer selections from Japan, and every time it's released, it flies off the shelf here at MrMaple because it's so unique with that super pink variegation to it. Other things we talked about, ways to keep its variegation really well, give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun. Because it's got so much pink and white in it, it'll actually burn a little bit if you give it too much sun. Mm-hmm. Also, you want to avoid fertilizing this with high amounts of nitrogen. The more fertilizer and high amounts of nitrogen you give this, the more green you're going to encourage in the leaf. And if you stay away from that nitrogen, you can really get a lot of those pink and white swirls, and you can really promote a lot of growth simply by that pruning we talked about earlier.
Yeah, that's really true of any of our variegated Japanese maples. Lower on that nitrogen, the better your colors will be. That late day shade will actually typically bring about the most color. We like early morning sun to pick some of the colors up and make them more vibrant. So in a perfect scenario, you have early morning sun, late day shade on most variegated Japanese maples. but certainly some that can handle. I mean, this one here in Western North Carolina in our zone 6B, we can do this one in full sun with great success, but you're gonna get more pink and white the more that late day protection you put on it. It's an exquisite tree, a little smaller overall in its size. This one's a little shorter and a little denser than some of the other upright variegated forms, which is nice as well, but I think it's one you're definitely gonna enjoy in your garden. So next up here on the table, we have a really nice plant. This one is Acer palmatum SHIGI no HOSHI. Now this is actually a Japanese introduction by Tsukasa Maple Nursery, and it has some amazing reticulated variegation. It's another one that has that etching throughout each leaf.
Yeah, Tsukasa Maple has become a good friend of ours. Yutaka Tanaka he's like us, but in Japan, and he loves the differences between the plants. He loves going in and having all these different varieties, and he really enjoys variegation. This is one that he introduced that is a small dwarf reticulated type, but it also has extremely jagged edges on the leaves, which makes it really stand out from other varieties.
He's been incredibly kind with us with information too.
Yeah.
Our first trip to Japan, we had contacted him, and he had said, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to meet with you. Like, we were literally getting on the plane and saw it, and we were like, oh man, he's one of the coolest places to go see. Tsukasa Maple has so many interesting introductions. And when we visited with Yano-san, Yano said, oh, he would love to meet with you. The problem was he wasn't able to get a translator that day. And I said, do you mind reaching back out to him and letting him know that if we provided a translator, would he be interested in seeing us? And oh my gosh, he was so gracious. He said, yes, of course. And he probably sat down for several hours with a whiteboard and just explained some of his introductions, the names, the meanings, and it was just that wealth of knowledge that you can't get unless you sit in person with somebody like that. It was a gorgeous plant, and it was something that was super cool to see the original on. Tim and I are plant geeks, so we like to go and see the very first of everything. It's part of our gotta catch 'em all strategy, is we like to go to the very first one and just document seeing it, because it's a really cool thing. If at all possible, source that as our original source.
And it truly is a dwarf reticulated type, much smaller than a lot of the Ghost series. It's going to be much smaller than things like Reticulatum and Shikatsusawa. Shigi no HOSHI will end up being about 4 to 5 feet tall, about 4 to 5 foot wide in 10 years. You want to give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun to really get that etching, that reticulated variegation to show longer throughout the season. But the green veins and the white creamy variegation make this tree a true pleasure on a small dwarf reticulated ghost type.
Yeah, it truly is very unique in that size is smaller and denser than most other reticulated types. And I think the bark actually has a little something to it too. It's normally more of a lime green, which looks pretty cool when it first leaves out with that white. I've seen it, be almost more golden yellowish too late in the season before it gets into that fall color even, but just some great color changes. One that's going to really stand out, the leaf is a little more rigid too than many of your reticulated forms, so it kind of has just its own little unique snowflake style foliage to it as well. And I think it's just a solid introduction, and one we're happy to offer here at MrMaple. So we've got a wide range of variegated Japanese maples here, from the larger leaf, the pink on red, kind of one of the brightest pink versions of the Arino style, and then a reticulated form. Tim, out of this grouping, what would you say your favorite is in this whole group?
Out of this group, I would probably have to go with, this is always a difficult question.
Yeah, it's a put you on the spot question.
I'd probably go with Noel, just because that red on pink variegation speaks to me. I like the extra flash. You get red, and then on top of that, it's super, super variegated. And then during the summer, you get green with cream variegation. I think that's one that's just going to always add that extra oomph in the garden, and people are going to say, what in the world's that? Because they've seen red, but they hadn't seen red like that with variegation.
That's a solid choice. I would say that's probably the customer's choice, although it may be Kotobuki. I'd have to look at the numbers. Both of those tend to fly off the shelves pretty quickly whenever they are released, but that's a solid choice.
What's your favorite, Matt?
Gosh, it is a hard one, and it would probably be a toss-up. I like to see the originals, and I've seen the original of both these two. I would probably lean a little more towards Shigi no HOSHI. I really like how the leaf is different on it. I like how jagged it is around the leaf, and I also like how compact it is. I just think it's unique. It's a perfect one to pair with something like a Magi Shiguri because of that, both being dwarf compact forms from Japan. one being that bright green reticulated, one being that bright purple reticulated. You know, if you put me on the spot today, I'd probably say Shigi no Hoshi. If you twisted my arm tomorrow, I might pick Noel, but I like a lot of these a lot. So
yeah, I like Shigi no Hoshi too. I mean, the fact that it's such a small dwarf type really adds a lot to a shade garden. I mean, it's gonna go really well in there and give something around your hostas and other plants that really stands out and something brighten up those darker places.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's also going to be one of the ones you really don't see in the nursery trade that often because it is a slow grower. So a lot of nurserymen know that it takes longer to finish than say a grandma ghost that's going to be a faster grower.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is a little bit more rare because of that slower overall speed. It's but like you said, that's a perfect point. I was actually about to say the same thing, is that it's perfect to brighten up that spot in a really dark garden. So it's going to bring some color and really perform well even in heavy shade. You're still going to get what makes that one cool in heavy shade, where you do want a little bit of sun with Noel to pick up those pinker colors.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily know if it can handle full sun in super hot climates, but you can give more sunlight with this one to really peak that red color like you're talking about.
Yeah.
And probably a little afternoon shade would probably hold that Shindeshojo like red color longer throughout the season.
Yeah.
But it could definitely probably, out of this grouping, probably handle the sun the most out of any of these.
Now, along with that, talking about climates, these all work zones 5 through 9. Most of our Japanese maples work zones 5 through 9. We do have a unique one in the group. The SIEBOLDIANUM here is particularly cold tolerant. Tim mentioned earlier that it leafs out a little bit later, and that's a great quality too, especially being here in Western North Carolina. It kind of protects us from those late frosts. But I think Kumoi Nishiki has something really unique in that it is a SIEBOLDIANUM. So it does kind of go on the fringes there, being a little bit more cold tolerant than your average Japanese maple.
Yeah, some people say that SIEBOLDIANUM can go down to zone 4B, which is half a zone colder than a typical Acer palmatum. And it'd be interesting if anyone has experience with that, put that in the comment section below. I'd love to know about where you live and if you're growing any of these plants that we're talking about here today.
For sure. Let us know in the comment section below your favorite Japanese maple from this grouping. We'll go back over them again. We've got the Kumoi Nishiki, the Noel, the Kotobuki, and the Shigi no Hoshi. So just let us know which is your favorite of this group. Have you grown these before in your garden? And if so, what are your experiences?
Hi, I'm Brian at MrMaple. Thanks for watching our video today.
So we hope you all enjoyed Brian and some of our recent videos. Brian recently moved here from his Oklahoma garden and is with us at MrMaple now. And you're about to start a North Carolina garden pretty soon. Now, I asked Brian, and he actually didn't grow any of these in his Oklahoma garden, which is quite surprising with your 250 plus cultivars you had. I don't know how you missed many. So we've managed to pick out 5 trees that Brian wasn't growing previously. So I have to ask, based on that, of these trees, Brian, which one would you most look forward to growing in your North Carolina garden?
Well, I think the Shigi no Hoshi is definitely one that's on my radar now, especially hearing you guys describe it. And I would really like to see that glowing out in the shade garden. I'm always about the reticulated Japanese maples. They're some of my favorites, so that's what I think I'd probably add in my garden first.
That's an excellent choice. You know, I neglected to bring up earlier that that's a great candidate for container gardening as well. That and Kotobuki, they're smaller overall shapes, make them an excellent candidate for that container garden. Make sure you have good drainage on your pot. You can actually watch our video on growing Japanese maples in containers as well. But that makes an excellent candidate for that container garden, and a perfect candidate, I think, because of the colors for like a fairy garden or a fairy container garden. Really fun way to grow that one. Hey, we hope you've enjoyed our videos. We hope you've enjoyed adding Brian to some of these new videos. He's been doing an excellent job editing these, so give him a shout out in the comments below about that too. If you notice us getting more professional looking, it's this guy making us look better here. So we greatly appreciate that.
So make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. And we really appreciate you guys checking everything out that we're doing lately. We hope that you're enjoying these series where we're breaking down these different cultivars and bringing more attention to them.
Hey, we greatly appreciate that. And if you do enjoy these videos, sign up for our weekly emails on MrMaple. We had 10 new exciting trees every single Tuesday at 10, so there's always something new and interesting coming. If you're watching this video, there may be currently some of these on the website. Some of them may be in future releases. It just depends on the time frame where you're watching that. So it's definitely going to be something you're going to want to be a part of. If you hit that email notification, you're always going to find out first what's new every Tuesday at 10. Thanks for watching our latest video. God bless.
And have a great day.